Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Sherry Warren, and I'm the Regional Director on the Promotions Team in IGA. I'm excited to be here today and to be a part of this year's Congressional Black Caucus Annual Legislative Conference, presented by Interscope, Geffen, and A&M Records, and featuring our joint venture labor partners, Dreamville and LVRN. Today's discussion centers on entrepreneurship and brand building from the lens of Black executives within the music industry. And in my humble opinion, we have some of the most talented and creative entrepreneurs and leaders in the industry joining as panelists today. Now, before we get started, I'd like to take an opportunity to introduce the Honorable Yvette D. Clarke, Congresswoman for the 9th District of New York. On behalf of our entire panel, Congresswoman Clarke, it is an honor to have you kick this event off with a special message. But first, I'd like to give a little background on our special guest. Congresswoman Clarke sits on the House Energy and Commerce Committee. Additionally, she serves as the co-chair for the Multicultural Media Caucus, which has primarily focused on diversity and inclusion within the media, entertainment, telecom, and tech industries. Thank you so much for joining us today, Honorable Clarke. The floor is yours.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Sherry, and thank you for inviting me to participate in the critical conversation on Black entrepreneurship. Growing out of the parks in Brooklyn and in Uptown, what we call Uptown the Bronx, hip hop has always provided a unique opportunity to turn your individual story and persona into a brand that can be projected across the country and I believe monetized. Hip hop has always embodied the best of the American entrepreneurial spirit, as well as the American work ethic. Those that turned the humble New York creation into the dominant American cultural force that it is today did so through hard work, innovation, and unrelenting passion for their craft. Nothing better describes what we hope American music industry can be than helping to create in the best of times. Hip hop allows its creators to borrow inspiration from the past, to combine with their own aesthetic and passions to create something all originating on its own. We must continue to foster this type of creativity and dedication to hard work. And if we hope to rebuild our nation in these coming years, I believe that the entrepreneurial spirit that is embedded in hip hop will lead the way. Today, we have the distinct pleasure of hearing from a group of young and talented Black business executives that have demonstrated this entrepreneurial spirit and are using their skills to build joint ventures that go beyond shaping trends in the music entertainment industry. In my own experience, it's always been those that are most willing to do the hard work in spite of the challenges put in front of them that make the difference in this world. And so in a world that provides far too little opportunity to Black and brown communities, hip hop has always given us a home that we call our own. A wraparound culture that both allows us to express our lived experiences in this country, unabashedly asserts our humanity in a nation that has historically denied it, and most importantly, for us today, something again that we take ownership of. Hip hop has helped carry on the legacy of Black Americans using the arts to establish businesses unto itself in an overriding culture that has historically ridiculed and excluded us. Hip hop and the arts more generally have allowed us to claim ownership over some small sliver of our nation. Today, we have long since passed the point of struggling to define ourselves within American culture. In no small part, thanks to the contributions of the hip hop community and those that perpetuate its culture, Black culture finds itself at the center of American culture. The question now remains, what will we do with this position and how we can expand the ranks of those at the helm of the businesses that shape this reality? With that said, I'd like to thank UMG and IGA again for holding this event and throw things back to Sherry and today's panel. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Congresswoman Clark. As I mentioned before, we're fortunate enough to have some amazing panelists joining us today, and I'm excited to welcome and introduce each one of them. We have none other than Keenan Johnson moderating the panel. Throughout his 23-year career in the music business, Keenan has achieved success at several major labels, including Priority, MCA, Geffen, and Interscope Records, where he currently serves as Senior Vice President of Urban Promotions. For our panelists, first up is Sean Famoso, co-founder of LVRN, the trailblazing label behind rising R&B stars Summer Walker and Black. From the Dreamville team, which is home to my North Carolina brethren, yeah, Carolina Blue, Grammy Award-winning artist J. Cole, and rising stars Ari Lennox and Boss. Adam Rodney, partner and creative executive. Candace Rodney, executive vice president at Dreamville. And Derek Oakley, marketing executive at Dreamville. Thank you to each and every one of you for being here today. I will now pass over the mic to Mr. Johnson, who will continue the moderation.
First of all, Sherry, I want to say amazing job kicking off everything. You really did great, and you represent us well. Thank you so much. Thank you, CBC. Thank you, Representative Clark, for being with us today, for representing my home city of New York City and New York State. And we're ready to jump into it. So, guys, let's have a good time. We all know each other pretty well, and let's impart some knowledge on everybody that's watching this today. To kick things off, can all of you guys kind of give me some background on what your current roles are in your respective labels today, and what you're doing currently in 2020? I'm going to start with Sean.
What up? I'm one of the co-founders of LVRN. My specific role is I'm the head of marketing and brand partnerships, more or less, focusing in on the storytelling of all of our artists and all of our acts, but, also our label as well. In 2020, I think it's been a roller coaster for everybody. So I think currently we are just continuing to unlearn everything we've ever known and, relearn some new stuff in order to, keep moving forward.
Absolutely. And you guys are definitely one of the collectives that I think the generation that's watching things in the industry right now are following. And I just kind of want to get an idea, what was the inspiration initially for starting LVRN?
We were throwing parties, and at a certain point in your life, you realize you either be a party promoter for the rest of your life, or you'll transition into something that utilizes those same tools that kind of got you there. And I think, some of our closest mentors and people around us and, the city of Atlanta that we're all from kind of was the perfect storm in order to allow us to just kind of like grow our wings and, enter into the music industry, starting with management and slowly growing and being able to have, bits of success with each one of our clients to the point that, we struck our deal with Interscope and, been, carrying on as a label and, and cultural hub ever since.
Excellent. Adam, similarly, when did the idea for Dreamville actually come to fruition? And what were some of the steps you had to take to launch it?
I still remember the call from Cole kind of giving me his idea for the name of the label. Just myself and Eve and Cole kind of like being so excited to like set the course for the brand. That was about 2007-ish. So it's been quite some time, but it's still, I wouldn't say we've like finished launching it. I'd say it's still part of a process, and Each year we're adding new things. So, the label is now over 10 years. The brand is over 10 years old, and then each year we're adding new things. So the festival is only a few years old, and our ventures in films and events and stuff like that, those things are new. So each year we're adding new things to launch. So it's all part of the process.
Absolutely. And with that idea of adding new things to make the collective even better and grow over time, Candace, this question is for you. Dreamville is definitely very family oriented, and you and Adam are actually related, and you have your own story background. I want to see, what does it mean for you to be joining Dreamville at this stage?
Yeah, so as Adam said, Dreamville has been around for over 10 years, I think about 13 years, and started as a label. My background, I've been an entertainment executive of various sorts, from labels to agencies to studios, etc. Started as a lawyer, worked my way to the creative. And so I've been a huge fan of Dreamville, and I've been an advocate of Dreamville and cheerleader for the sidelines for so long. I don't think Dreamville is any different than most corporations, and I would certainly say hip hop labels that are founded, whether literal family or family of friends or, schoolmates or classmates, things of that nature. And so, I've watched them from the sidelines for so long, and it just got to a place where I think, coupled with the state of the world and wanting to help them grow and to develop and expand into the different verticals in which we're now growing, but also really wanting to be aligned with people who saw the world the way that I saw the world and wanted to change the world in the way that I wanted to change the world. And there was no other person for me that was better aligned with the goals and things that I wanted to do other than Adam, and other than the Dreamville team, which in its DNA it's about dreaming and is about change. So instead of coaching them from the sidelines, it made sense to team up and build this superpower together. And, here we are.
That's amazing. That's actually really dope. With that in mind, how does being a woman, particularly a Black woman, influence your role or how you conduct business within your new surroundings at Dreamville? Or does it affect it at all?
Well, I think being a Black woman, I always have a different lens and point of view that I bring to the table. Most of the senior managers at Dreamville are men, but the reality is Dreamville has always been incredibly, open and advocates of women all around the company, whether it's our head of design or our foundation lead, our director of operations, our manager on the studio side, our accountants, our publishers, our label execs, all around us, are Black women and are women and people of color. And so they've been incredibly great advocates, I would say, to identifying talent, developing talent, and making sure that voices, no matter what perspective is heard. I think as a Black woman, being in a space and being at a company where your point of view may be a little bit different and the lens in which you see things may be a little bit different, but having the space to be able to add that value is incredibly important. So, I think it's a credit to not only Dreamville, but also the fact that, me knowing that as a Black woman, I see things from a different lens, and there's a space and there's a value to that.
Absolutely. Derek, I want to throw this one to you, my brother. I know originally you had aspirations of taking on a career in law, in the entertainment and sports field, which initially transformed into you actually coming into the entertainment industry. So I wanted to know, what actually made you decide not to necessarily go into law and pursue your passion on this side of the fence?
Yeah. Well, I was a paralegal assistant at K&L Gates, a big law firm in New York City, and it was terrible. It just made me realize that I was around people that didn't look like me and didn't have the same hopes, desires, wishes. And I did find one older Black partner. He was like a 40-year-old dude, and he was like, "Oh, why are you here?" And I told him, and he was like, pretty much, how much money do you think I make? And I told him how much. He was like, you're not far off. But how much money do you think I spent to be happy? Because I hate it here. And I was like, oh. Like when I saw Get Out, I was like, oh, I had that moment in real life. Like I had it, and I would just be like, yo, go find something else. And I went back to just a professor from NYU who told me like, yo, what did you like when you were a kid? And I told him about the Spike Lee commercials, and I told him about the Nike Freestyle commercial. He's like, yo, who makes those? And I was like, I don't know. He's like, figure out. So I figured it out. I figured out what advertising was, and our founder Ibrahim Hamad, his older brother Mo Hamad's a DJ named DJ MoMA, and I found a small boutique ad agency that I wanted an internship at. The owner knew him on Facebook, low key, and I hit him up. I was like, "Yo, plug me," and I got into advertising. Then people started making music around me, or I started to realize what was going on, saw the parallels in the industries. Seen the business model and was like, yo, this translates over here. And then honestly, lucky enough, Adam just gave me a shot. I was just talking a lot of smack from the sidelines. Like, yo, I don't understand why you're doing this. I don't understand why you're doing this. Why are you not doing this? That's a terrible business plan. Like, that doesn't make sense. Adam gave me a shot. Was like, yo, listen to him. Listen to him. He's talking smack, but it makes sense. And, you know, it's been 10 years.
Man, Derek, you are truly the example of dreams don't work unless you do. You took the signs and you followed the signs, and you are a great example of actual dreamer, which your company represents. And I think that's really dope. You're the DNA of the company. That's amazing. Sean, back to you. As a Black entrepreneur, specifically now in 2020, do you feel an increased responsibility to succeed in the corporate landscape?
Increased?
Yes.
No, not increased. I mean, I think that, you know, the way that myself and some of my partners were all raised and just kind of brought up is that, you know, we're all first generation immigrants for one. So there's a certain sense of, you better be more successful in your generation than my generation being our parents. So there was like always an added pressure, if you will, of making sure that you made it out. Granted, you know, the way or the industry that we're in may not have been the industry that our parents thought that we would end up in, but I think we've always been just kind of groomed to be able to exist in these worlds. And I think the pressure, if nothing else, is finding that way to continue to balance who we are as like individuals and what it takes to survive in corporate America, and making sure that, you know, we don't lose ourselves trying to please others. But in that same breath, I think, you know, in 2020, the beauty of it is there is a sense of cultural currency, and, you know, you can actually even use your complexion as currency. And, you know, being able to
speak to that.
Right. So yeah, being able to be, if you're able to be as cool as you naturally are, or be as Black as you naturally are, and also speak the language of, for the particular of this conversation, white America, then, you know, the world can kind of fall in your palm. I think, you know, if I was to, you know, run and put on a suit and tie, I would actually be less valuable than I am in my hoodie and hat, just because it's there's still, or there's become such an allure of educated Black people. And granted, it's weird when you say it like that, but in that same breath, if you're not going to capitalize on it, then are we really doing ourselves, you know, just? So I think being Black in the streets is a little bit different sometimes being Black in corporate America, if you know how to kind of execute it properly. And we as a company have always kind of understood that power, and you know, we use it.
Being the most authentic version of yourself, but also being competent in that as well. I love it. I do have a follow-up to that though as well, Sean. Is maintaining diversity part of the structure and DNA of LVRN?
Maintaining diversity. Yes. I mean, I think, you know, the concept of being colorblind just is kind of ignorant because you shouldn't be colorblind. I think we naturally hire people that have shown improved themselves to us over time. Like a lot of our employees are actually people that have been around us for years that we finally, within the last couple of years, been able to properly take care of them. Therefore, we can bring them onto the team officially. I think we don't seek after anything just because we have the ability to. I think we don't mind, and we rather look in our community for people that look like us that would need the same type of opportunities as we were given. I think a lot of what we do is really reminiscent of what we were given. Coming up under like Chaka and Luda and PK and Jeff Dixon and the whole DTP fam. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. So we just naturally try to replicate, the same resources that were given to us.
Excellent. Adam, I'm gonna throw it to you, sir. Can you speak to some of the challenges Dreamville has faced as a Black-owned company on your way up to success?
I go off of what Sean kind of just mentioned. I think that a lot of businesses and corporations and brands, they see that value in Black culture, and they see the value in us being comfortable in our own skin, and the value in our hoodie and the hat, like he said. But there's, on the other side, there's also there is a lot of fear of working with Black businesses, and we've experienced that. I think there's also kind of a stigma about working in hip hop, that we've had to face challenges like that. Not to knock Raleigh or anything, but we had to jump through some hoops. When we set up our festival, it was not an easy process, and it made us question, how did anyone else in the city who does events like this have to go through as much as we did. But it worked out, and we were able to navigate those challenges, and that's just something that I think Black people have always dealt with. It's just having to do, that extra bit of work to get to the same places as some white businesses and some white companies. And we see that now, even with the news as of a day ago with president and stuff like that. So you gotta rise to that occasion and overcome those challenges, and we've definitely had those types of moments for sure.
One thing I like to say for myself when I'm in encountering challenges, resiliency is not an option.
Yeah.
We don't get that luxury. We have to be resilient. You don't get
exactly. I mean, it's something you see in everything. It's not just business. It's in sports. How much work did these athletes have to do more than the others? And it's not right, but it's something I think anyone's gonna face. Any Black business, any Black person is gonna face in their life. That they have to rise above and beyond what's put in front of them.
Great. Sean, have you encountered any of those similar challenges with LVRN with trying to do partnerships or anything like that?
For sure. I think there's always that sense of hip hop music or Black music isn't worth what pop music is. And until, the last few years in which pop music has obviously been rectified or been notified as being Black music and one and the same, we've now been able to demand the same type of deal structure, funding, and opportunities as everybody else. But I think the amount of kicking and screaming that we've had to do in the past has always been very, very annoying. And then especially when it comes to brand partnerships, being from Atlanta, it's always been very aggravating or frustrating rather when you can go to LA, New York, London, Chicago, and see all these amazing like live events put together and activations and the amount of money that certain brands will pump into a city. But it would never be the same when you get to Atlanta. And during this time, and still, you know, Atlanta, the amount that of cultural influence that Atlanta has musically and otherwise and gives to the world has never been reciprocated when it comes from like a brand structure. So I think, you know, the amount of demanding that we've done from the, you know, the Mercedes of the world and the Deltas of the world and all these, you know, huge companies that are in our backyard, but don't necessarily give to us the same that they do to others continues to be a struggle, continues to kind of be a fight. But I think the more, you know, it becomes plain as day that they need to respect us, the more it does. And, you know, some of the conversations really is with the people on the ground that are doing or are accepting some of these deals and making sure that we align with some of the up and coming guys and women that, you know, we should hold to a standard that is kind of understood, that we don't do things for cheap. We're not a cheap city. We're not a city that can be activated for less than just because, you know, you're in this city and, you know, they know no better and things of that nature. So I think a lot of brands, whether they know it or not, try to prey on what they would consider ignorance or like, you know, lack of experience, you know, with some of our, you know, our young business people.
They literally just want to throw you a bone. Period.
And that's how they'll preach it. Like, you know, we don't really, you know what? Go ahead. Here's $3,000. Go change the world real quick.
That's a big old fact. I used to be a party promoter as well, and before I stepped into the music game and throughout my years in college and after college. So I'm familiar with dealing with brands that want to shortchange you. So I know that very well, and I applaud you guys for bucking the system. Candace, I'd love to bring you back into the conversation. Do you and your team find yourself or looking for ways to collaborate with other Black-owned businesses?
Yeah, all the time. I think it's not just because it's a Black-owned business, but I think it's a synergy in story. It's a synergy in mission. It's a synergy in our demographic and the way that we want to impact and change the culture. And so, yeah, we certainly don't limit our partnerships to only Black-owned businesses, but we certainly make it a mission in everything that we do, whether those are brands or being specific about some of the creative partners that we have, being specific about the type of content that we produce, being specific about the talent that we want to amplify and book at our festival. So it's always in the forefront of what we're thinking.
Absolutely. Derek, I'm going to bring you and Candace both into this next question. It's pretty long, so pardon me for reading it out like it's a script, but it's pretty damn long.
Mm-hmm.
Over the years, we've seen both teams experience growth beyond the music industry. In the case of Dreamville, you all have the Dreamville Studios, apparel, festivals, and foundations. Can you speak to the importance of expansion and continuing the entrepreneurship spirit that has launched Dreamville in the first place? And that's for both of you guys.
Candace, you want to take a shot at it?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, it's up to you.
Sure.
Your call.
It's a big question. Yeah, but it's an exciting question for us. And, you know, we talked about how Dreamville started as a label. The role that I play within the Dreamville umbrella is actually twofold. So I co-manage Dreamville Ventures, which is a newly created umbrella company that encompasses all the different verticals and divisions that Dreamville has. So that's records, that's studios, that's our apparel, that's publishing, that's the festival and live events, and that's the agency business. And so they've all been incredibly successful doing things across all of these different mediums, but, you know, it made sense for us to formalize that and to build the infrastructure and bring in the right leaders and the right teammates to be able to grow and scale the business. I also wear the hat of president of Dreamville Studios, which is all things for us, TV, film, digital, and podcast. And it was really important for me. I told Cole this personally. I remember, I think it was Forest Hill's concert. I remember going to the show, and he, you know, was talking about the house, and he was talking about his backstory. And I remember in that moment, I said to myself, he is one of the best storytellers that I've ever met. And so much of what the content space is just, it's telling a story. It's having a voice, it's having a point of view, and it's having a perspective about humanity, about the dynamics of people. And that's something that Cole and the rest of the Dreamville artists and team does incredibly well. And so being able to formalize that and to provide content specifically in the TV and film space, it's just a natural next step in progression for them.
Awesome. Derek?
Yeah, I think, so I worked for an ad agency called the Brooklyn Brothers out of New York. And I was blown away by two things. One was, this was a British-owned ad agency, and I was brought in as a brand strategist. And one of my main accounts was New Eras. I'm a New York dude, like, you know, lived, died, and showered with a fitted on, like, my whole life. And I'm in there telling them, like, yo, I'm giving you source material. Like, you're tapped into the culture right here. And I'm having British dudes tell me, nah, you're wrong. And I'm like, listen, bro, like, I'm not wrong. I'm telling you the real deal. And it would happen across multiple accounts. It's like, all right, now it's this Caucus. And I'm like, why don't we do something with Pastor Caucus? This makes me, no, they're like, you're wrong. And it just blew my mind that people that didn't look like me, that were selling things to me, were not listening to me. That was one thing that was super eye-opening to me. Like, I remember saying, we're going to lose these accounts, which we eventually did, because you're not listening to, like, who you're trying to speak to. The second thing was, yo, they did anything they wanted. They were an ad agency that started a whiskey, that started a chocolate brand, that started a travel. And I was like, yo, you could do that? You could just do whatever you want? Like, if you think you could figure it out, you could do that? Those two things I've taken with me to Dreamville, in that we need to sell, or not even sell, we need to make what our people want. And we should be in control of the conversations at all these different touch points. So when I had a friend that worked at HBO said, yo, they're looking for music content, and they're trying to get in contact with your demographic, young Black kids, 18 to 24, 18 to 36. How you think we got, you know, 2 documentaries on HBO? It's realized, like, oh, that's what you want? We could do it. Like, let us tell this story. That's what we want to do. And then, as Candace said, like, we're expanding. Like, we can do whatever we want. Anything that we're looking at in the world, and we're like, yo, we have a perspective. If we go and we find people that look like us, that know exactly what they're doing in that field, we can build a vision. We could build something that's bigger. I remember being on tour with Cole. I think it was probably For Your Eyes Only. And I had a moment where I was like, damn, like, this is a Black-owned record label. This is Black-owned security. The catering is Black-owned. Me and Maddie running the whole operations under KC. The whole road team is Black. The band is Black. Everyone was Black. And like, this is something that, like, is super. It's powerful. Like, I look at my life growing up, and it's like, I didn't have a Black teacher until I was like 17. And it's like, that's ridiculous. And then you look, like, my doctors weren't Black. My dentist wasn't Black. My basketball coaches weren't Black. My football coaches weren't Black. I think that we are in a position, like, even when you said, like, is diversity an important thing earlier? For me, yeah. For us, it really is. I think it's just effort. We just did a shoot for Puma where everyone was Black. Like, it was the first advertising shoot I've ever been on, where, like, I caught the moment. Like, I was like, whoa, like everyone looked like us. And honestly, even deeper was King Mez, who was the creative director, and his team put together the shoot. They hired specific North Carolina talent that did the shoot. And that's impactful. Knowing what Dreamville means, knowing that they went and found the talent. The caterer was from North Carolina. I was like, oh, yo, y'all went in. Like, it's community. It's building community. We could do this at the same time as we build a bigger vision.
Man, I love it, man. That's so inspiring. I mean, I think it ties into what some of Sean was saying earlier. I think authentic representation will always bear the most fruit, especially now. Like, we are the culture, and you have to have people in these spaces that actually represent us in the most authentic ways, but that are competent as well to actually pull things to the finish line. So thank you for that. Adam, I did want to bring you back into the conversation, because you were, day one, in the vision of what Dreamville is, and actually seeing it through to, actual brick and mortar offices, right? So what are 3 things that you can say in the course of building Dreamville in your entrepreneurship journey that a Black entrepreneur should take into consideration when trying to build something from vision, actual conception?
So like three skills.
Yeah, 3 skills.
The things that I first off, I'd go with what Derek just mentioned, which is vision. And I think that's like so key to just kind of know where you can take this thing, and never stop dreaming, really, like dreaming and thinking about, what course you can kind of navigate and where you can take your business, take your artist, and having a vision for exactly the lane you want is, I think, key. And never let anybody like temper with that or challenge that. How you want to see your career, how you want to see your business grow. And it's not going to always be easy to kind of see your vision through, but you can't ever let it kind of get, pushed around. And so that's something that we definitely maintain here and try to constantly measure what we do against, our vision for how we, wanted it to go, or how we wanted this particular venture to start. I think the second thing is probably patience, because you may have a vision for how you want things to go, but it may not be the time for it just yet. And so having the patience to, be okay with it kind of working its way out. I know that's something that myself personally, I'm not the most patient person, but I have, 2 partners in Eve and Cole who are very patient and very take their time to figure out, when is the right moment. And I think that we have a few people on our team at Dreamville, so that helps keep us, on track. And this kind of, the last one kind of goes together with those 2, which I think is having that vision, being patient and waiting and knowing when that vision is going to come true. And the last is being persistent in you're going to face walls, you're going to face challenges, you're going to be told no, it's going to look impossible, insurmountable. And, the persistence is definitely needed to get things to go the way you want. And I think everybody on this panel has spoke to an instance, where that trait, that skill is required. So yeah, those are my kind of 3 core things that I try to keep with me in my career and bring to the label.
I love it. Candace, I'm gonna bring you back in. We're gonna stay on skills, and being a successful Black woman yourself, you have a unique journey that only you can speak about. So I'd like to know, in your journey and moving forward, what are 3 things or 3 skills that you have in your toolbox that has helped you progress in your own career?
Well, definitely everything that Adam just said. I will echo all of those. But particularly from a Black woman lens, I would say we are a lot of underpaid, we're underrepresented, we're underappreciated, we're undervalued. Like the list can go on and on and on and on and on. And so one thing that you touched on earlier, Keenan, was about resiliency. So definitely being resilient, because there are a lot of roadblocks that aren't fair, and it's not just, and it's not equitable at times, but being resilient in your value and in your quest is definitely one. I would also say being strategic, you know, figuring out your entry point and your exit point for opportunities, figuring out if things aren't naturally allowing for your voice and your work to be seen or appreciated, finding ways to get that visibility. And lastly, I would say probably allyship. You know, we all talked about on this call having community, you know, having people, whether they are internal in the organization or external, that are part of the community. So there's tons of shared experiences. And so using that community to figure out whether that's a salary negotiation, whether that's opportunities for advancement, whether that's opportunities to bring on, you know, other qualified women of color and Black women in particular into an organization, like do it as a unit, because I think, you know, as a community, as a group, we're able to really affect, you know, change.
Absolutely. Excellent. Thank you. Derek, I want to bring you back in, sir. And I want to dig a little bit into the branding side of what Dreamville is. How would you describe Dreamville as a brand, one, and what sets Dreamville apart from other brands?
I think as a brand, we're storytellers. And I think that everyone says they're a storyteller, but I think most brands are telling a very specific lens, whether it be a regional lens or I think our lens happens to be one that's bigger and encompasses the entire Black experience, to be completely honest with you. And what I've also noticed, been on the road, doing the touring, being at all the different shows, is the Black experience is now an experience that other people are starting to really understand and see the mirror image. Like one thing about Dreamville I think is amazing is our like Latinx community is massive, and everywhere we go, they show up, and I'm like, yo, it's awesome. I've been in arenas where I'm looking around, I'm like, I don't understand how all these different type of people are connecting, and it's because our story is now one that other races and other subcultures are starting to be like, yo, I'm like you. Like, what could be more of an American story than a white kid and a Mexican kid and an Asian kid looking at Cole's story or Derek's story or Maddie P's story or Boss's story, and seeing themselves, you know, that's the beauty. I think the one thing that Cole really did with Dreamville was give an opportunity to other versions of him. Like he knows what he had to get through to put out the Sideline story, you know, like he remembers that journey and he's expedited that journey. He went out and found Ari from DC, who was like, yo, she's telling the same J. Cole story. It's just about Ari Lennox. And Earth Gang and Jid are J. Cole, but they're from Atlanta. And like Boz is from Paris and New York, and like he's a real true New Yorker. Like, but they're all the same young kid that he was when he found his voice and was like, yo, I need to tell everybody about this. That's what I think Dreamville is. And we're finding our voice as a brand across all these other verticals now and other touch points. I think one of the biggest things that I noticed throughout this whole 2020 has been crazy. Like we've seen the world be shaken on a level that's bigger than what we do every single day. That was the first thing that I noticed. And the second thing I noticed was in our community, we really need to have more conversations. And Black conversations to me is like, you can ask Candace, you can ask Adam. That's what my biggest takeaway has been, is how do we have these conversations and how do we keep telling these stories? Like, I know 10 Black stories. I don't know 250,000, because that's how many there's more. You know what I'm saying? Like, the new app Clubhouse that everybody's on, yo, I'm loving it because I'm meeting more Black people that I don't have access to. Like, and I'm talking to people and I'm hearing their stories, and that's what we do at Dreamville. That's what I'm hoping that we continue to do and continue to grow, is tell you every Black story possible.
Love that. Love that. Love that. Excellent. Sean, I'm going to bring you back in, sir. I've heard you say in prior interviews that it's important for a label to have its own brand outside of the identity of the artist. Can you speak on that a little more, sir?
Yeah. I mean, I think if you treat your label like a community in itself, and I know we use, like, not to say we overuse the word community, but it's a popular word. But I think it's very important, even like if it was a farm, right, for the soil in itself to kind of be rich. So every time you have a new blossoming act or an act that makes it, to be a star, you shouldn't have to start from ground zero in order to make that next artist a star. In that sense, it's really important that the label itself has an energy to it, that it has a personality to it. And I think we didn't even necessarily mean to do what we've, started to do. And it's because every co-founder of LVRN used to throw parties. So naturally, it was just like in our DNA to like congregate people and have a reason to celebrate. And I think that served us really well in the sense that, there'll be an up and coming act that's not signed to LVRN or that may obviously be independent, and people are automatically like, yo, that looks like an LVRN artist. And I think that's like a really beautiful thing, that people can associate a type of music or a type of mood or a type of vibe to a particular, entity. I think, it's really interesting that we're one of the few labels that haven't been cross-identified with one particular artist. I think when you think about good music, you can't think about it without thinking about Ye. When you think about OVO, you can't think about OVO without thinking about Drake. I think LVRN has found a way to just kind of exist as a property, and our artists are our speaking points, and our artists are more or less like the scorers of the entire movement that we have. And I think that's the beautiful thing about it. And music continues to be like the catalyst for everything that LVRN wants to do. But in that same breath, it's really, really beautiful to see whenever we do sign a new act, it kind of comes with a certain level of respect prior to even, releasing new music, because it's almost like if they already like it, then let's see what the hype is about before there's even hype. So I just think it's really important for up and coming labels and independent management companies to make sure that they highlight what is special about being around them as much as it is the artist itself. And I think it'll always kind of pay itself back.
So just a follow up to that, Sean, definitely notice you guys paying close attention to the mental health space and being a conduit for these kids out here that need, an entry point into that space. How does that play into LVRN's overall brand identity?
Yeah, I mean, we've all, and I say all, meaning like the entire industry, the entire world has become incredibly desensitized when it comes to suicide, when it comes to overdoses, when it comes to, breaking down and, cries for help and things of that nature. And it's not supposed to be normal. It's not supposed to be natural. And I think in 2020, the amount of time we spend, putting the right foods in our body, hitting the gym 5 times a week, and doing all these overt healthy things, nobody especially the Black community, puts as much effort on maintaining our mental health. And I think the difference is something doesn't have to be broke for you to want to fix it. It's really about maintaining it. It's like an oil change. You know what I'm saying? Like we have a therapist that is responsible for the entire company, down to the five co-founders. And our relationship couldn't be stronger with me and my partners, but it's supposed to stay that way. Therefore, let's keep it that way. You know, it shouldn't take a falling out in order for us to go and seek help. But you know, the therapist is available from everybody from Summer and Black to whoever's working the lights the night at one of our shows. You know, so I think it's really just about keeping a well-oiled machine and just making sure that everybody, with the amount of pressures that our industry naturally has that are unnatural to the body and unnatural to the mind, that we just, you know, really stay on top of it. And I think even bigger than that, we just want it to become an industry standard for labels and, you know, especially, you know, the larger labels, because the amount of yellow tape that we had to go through in order to successfully launch ours, the amount of lawyer conversations, it's just like, you would think that you're trying to do something wrong, you know, with the amount of fights that you have to fight in order to, you know, protect your employees, protect your artists, protect yourself. Yeah, that, you know, it needs to be easier to do this, and people that have, and entities that have more money and more resources than we do should, you know, even more easily be able to do something like this. So yeah.
So we're about to start winding down, guys. I probably only got 2-3 questions left, but I want to pose one of these to everyone on the panel. Now more than ever, mentorship is always brought up in regards to ultimately people finding their entryway into the business and achieving success. Any of you can jump in here. Have any of you had any specific mentors or mentorships that you can speak of that help you along your way? Specifically speaking about the music industry or just entertainment.
Well, definitely. Where are you going, Derek? Do you want me to jump in?
Yeah, no, yeah, you go, please.
Okay. Definitely. I've had the same mentor since I was 19 years old. He gave me my first job in music when I was a student in Atlanta at CAU. And, you know, there's never been a major career decision, and even now, almost 20 years later, life decision that I haven't run by him. And it's not just advice, but our relationship always ends up with him saying, well, what can I do to make sure that you're successful? Which means, let me connect you with the right people. Let me give any additional resources. Let me, you know, train you or your staff, you know, in areas where there may be opportunities to grow. You know, all of that is incredibly valuable. I would also say it's important to not only mentor up, but to mentor across. And at this particular state in my career, most of the opportunities that I get, even the way that we hire and the type of partners that we bring on at this company, there are peers. You know, there are people just like us who have put 10, 15 years in the game and who are now senior executives across the business, whether music or, you know, throughout all of entertainment. I would also say there's a difference between a mentor and a sponsor. And I've also had really great sponsors in my life, which we may not have as in-depth of a relationship, but there are people who know me and they know my brand and they know my work and my value. And whenever there's opportunities, whether it's a panel, whether it's a job opportunity, where there's, you know, an opportunity for me to be visible and for me to be valued, they definitely sponsor and send things, you know, my way. And so that combination have been critical for me.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think for me, Eve's really my first mentor. You know, like I didn't know I wanted to do, like, honestly, like as a New Yorker, I was like, I'm not doing this music shit. Everybody does this. Like, you know, like that was how I really perceived it. That's why I wanted to be in sports. So Eve was my first mentor, and he was the first person that I was like, yo, I see what you're doing. I think I could do what you do. No disrespect. Can you show me the ropes? And then like Candy says, it's really, I'm very blessed that it is our peers, like straight up. It's people my own age that I can connect with. And luckily enough, we realize that, you know, each one reach one. And if it's a win, if your wins are my wins. That's the beauty of, I feel like, our generation. And then like somebody like Candace, who's come in, and you know, I'm like, yo, I'm learning. Like, this is amazing. Like, I thought I was lit. I thought I knew everything, and it's like, nah, you don't, son. Like, you don't. And like, you know, she's bringing her perspective and all the things she's learned when she left the music industry and went out, and now is bringing that and showing me how to do that in music, and eventually how I'm going to be able to do that in other things. And you know, I hope I can be someone's mentor. You know, like would be awesome to hear somebody refer to me as their mentor, and I'm gonna try to do the same that he's done for me, the same as Candace doing for me currently in real time.
I love that. Anybody else want to step into that?
No?
Oh.
I would say for myself, tuned in some of the guys, definitely, you know, Chaka Zulu and Jeff Dixon, Paris Kirk. Yeah, I mean, I think what they did for us from a mentorship standpoint is let us fuck up. And Chaka in particular is he's like Obama to me. Like, you know, the amount of relationships that he has and the openness and willingness that he has to let you take it all, as long as you don't mess it up, is something that I've never seen before. I think sometimes as execs, you know, people feel that their worth is in their contacts, therefore they're very guarded about them. Chaka is so confident in himself and his relationships that he feels no panic if somebody you know, is able to, you know, do what he does. No, I mean, I think that was just incredibly beautiful to us, and you know, the amount of rope that they've given us to just, like, you know, fuck up is, I think, equally as important as what we were able to do, and we did succeed. So those are definitely my guys, and you know, to this day we you know, talk every week.
Mentors is important. Mentors are very important. Before I step into this final question, guys, and you guys have been amazing, I just want to say how happy and grateful I am to work with, you know, such an amazing, authentic, young Black entrepreneurs every day. Like, you guys really, like, walk it how you talk it, and you know, it just feels good to help, you know, all of us succeed, but you know, help you guys succeed in your dreams as well, because I come from where you guys come from. So to see us all ascend, it just means a lot. So I really appreciate you guys. Final question. Can you all share a piece of advice for youth who look to LVRN and Dreamville as the leaders of the pack and hope to one day establish their own record label or business? Anyone can take it.
This always sounds weird. Don't try to walk in the footsteps of people that you look up to. And I only say that because your feet are different. The assets that you come into a situation with are different. The liabilities are different. Your strengths are different. Your weaknesses are different. Dreamville's story is going to be Dreamville's story. LVRN's story is going to be our story. I think there's bits and pieces that you can take from it, but there is never going to be a dynamic that is identical to what we have, that is identical to what they have. And I think sometimes the younger kids, or, you know, just even whoever, try to emulate, especially the fun parts. They love to emulate the fun parts, but they try to emulate until a point that they're actually misguiding themselves, because there may be something that they have that's way crazier than what we would have had, and we would have done something totally different. And, you know, the personalities are different and all these different things. And I just think that it's really beautiful when people just kind of look at themselves objectively and are able to piece with their partners who should be responsible for what, who's really good at what, who can be better at what, and kind of, like, you know, kind of build from there. So I always say, like, you know, don't listen to me, because honestly, half the time I don't know what I'm talking about. And I think, you know, anybody that says that they do know what they're talking about is lying, because a lot of times this really is, you know, a game of, you know, trials and errors. And, you know, we still have yet to be fearful of errors. So, you know, that's my biggest message to anybody.
Anybody else?
Um,
I would say, oh, you go, Derek.
no, you go, Candace.
I would say find your voice, you know, figure out who you are at your core, you know, what are your value systems, who are you in the quiet, right? And hold on to that for dear life, because this industry will push you and challenge you and try to compromise you in so many different ways. And I think that if you make decisions coming from that core, even if they are learning experiences for you, you'll never really be wrong, because the intention, you know, will always be right and always be pure. So that would be my piece.
So, D?
I think that I would tell any young kid, like, just because it's the music industry doesn't mean that it's fun. It's kind of what I learned about the sports industry when I was like, oh, I love sports, I want to do sports. And it's like, yo, all that, like, unless you're playing, like, it's not what you think it is. And think about that before you make any decisions, right? And then the second thing is, like, you really get out of everything you do, you only get what you put into it. So whether that is, you know, your own personal health, to your business ideas, to your 9 to 5, to what you're trying to do 5 to 9, so you don't have to work 9 to 5. You really have to put it in. You have to write your own movie. You know, like, it's super cliche, but that's really what it is. You can't count on anyone to do anything for you. Anything you get is a blessing. Any help you get is a blessing, but you got to put the work in. It's something that I'm, as the 32-year-old, still trying to learn how to do every single day, because it's not like you level up one day and then you're good forever. Nah, every day is a battle for my personal, and then for my business, and for my career. But yeah, I think it's just invest that same time in your career as you do in your mental health and wellness.
Adam, any parting words?
Yeah, though, I'd say to invest in and empower your people, the people around you who want to be a part of your journey. Listen to them, hear them, you know, recognize them. We've been so fortunate to have so many friends, family, people we've run into, like guys who've literally, like, who've even been fans of what we've done, you know, share with us how they want to add to our story and be a part of our journey. And that takes an immense amount of openness, and selflessness to hear the people around you and trust them. So, you know, anyone who's coming up, if you got good friends, if you got a good team, if you recognize that somebody's capable, you know, give them a shot and empower them and give them a chance. You'll be so surprised, you know, 10, 15 years in, to see what they develop into. That's one of the joys I've had in my career. It's just all the different creatives, all the different guys whose paths we've kind of crossed, to see how they've grown off of a small chance that, you know, I was able to give them, or someone at Dreamville was able to give them. And, you know, I still work with some of those guys to this day. And some of them have gone on to do their own thing and better things. So that's always a pleasure.
All great advice. Thank you, panel. In closing, Sean, Adam, Candace, Derek, on behalf of IGA, we can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us for this panel and dropping so many jewels. A special thank you to Congresswoman Clark, Sherry Warren. Like you said earlier, it's an honor to have had you kick things off for us. Thank you to the Congressional Black Caucus for having us. And for those in attendance, we hope that today's discussion has been just as impactful to you as it has been to us and our teams. As we wrap up, I want to take an opportunity to state the obvious. This is the most important election of our lifetime. Please make sure you use your voice and vote, please. And that's it.